Welcome back to today's episode of Unapologetic Living. I'm Elizabeth Elliott and I'm your hostess, and I am thrilled to have Maria Davis uh, on the show today. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I
Well,
appreciate the invite.
yeah, I'm glad that you came on. I love, well, first of all, my curiosity was piqued when I saw your sketch and soul workshops. It just looked, I don't know. I'm all about like digging into a deeper meaning, like why am I here? What is my purpose? And understanding myself a little bit better and my how to evolve my soul. And I think creativity is a huge piece of that.
Yeah,
Um, and that's what, I was like, oh, I need to know more about her work and what she wants to bring to, well, our community, local community, but just to the collective. Because if we can inspire even just one person in our community, hopefully they inspire another. And then, it's just sort of a ripple effect. And then everybody's healing.
100%. Yeah, the idea for Kindling Studios started during my own personal season of burnout. I was feeling really overstimulated, constantly in motion, but yet really numb creatively. And I kept thinking, like, I need a softer pace. I need space to kind of feel things again. I missed the tactile joy of just making things with my hands and the slowness of journaling and doing things without a deadline, and the kind of conversations that come when you're just quietly creating something next to someone else that's quietly creating something. And I noticed how many people around me kind of felt similarly disconnected from themselves and also, from nature, from this kind of childlike sense of wonder that we used to have about the world. So I kind of started asking myself, like, what if I made space for that again? What if people around me started making space for that again? So Kindling became a way to kind of invite people, especially women, back into these creative rituals that are really simple, really nourishing, but also very accessible. So it's not about being good at art. It's just about waking up your senses, reconnecting with your inner voice, gathering together in meaningful ways. So that's kind of what kindling is at its heart. It's about these small sparks, quiet creativity leading to something fuller and warmer and being more alive.
And this was inspired by your own feeling of burnout, which I think you mentioned women, a lot of women find themselves in that space, right? Whether it's a career oriented, like focus, productivity driven life, or whether, they're running kids around, it really doesn't matter, right? That sense of overwhelm and burnout is very real.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's kind of those feelings that I had when I was thinking about the name and the word kindling. I thought it was a perfect metaphor for what I wanted to create. Like, it's these small sparks that we have time for in our current state. And those are the beginnings of a larger, warmer, meaningful space that we can develop and cultivate. So it's more about tending to your inner fire gently where you're at, meeting yourself where you're at right now in all this burnout, in all this running around, and not forcing it to just be a wildfire all right off the bat. Just like kindling wood helps start a flame, the practices that we do at kindling, like the journaling and the sketching and just the slowing down, are meant to kind of reignite this creativity and be more present and connect with others. So that's one side. And then the other side is about being intentional. So I kind of thought about, a fire made with kindling doesn't happen by accident. It requires some care, it requires some attention. A lot of times it requires a lot of time. So, that's the energy we want to bring into these spaces that we create, a lot of coziness, deliberate. When people come in, they feel like they have a potential to hear themselves internally and not worry so much about all of the external things that are coming in. So I really liked the term kindling for being both grounded in nature, but also really symbolic about this personal transformation that you could make, you know, when you care about this small spark and caring about it and really showing yourself that attention, but in a gentle way, not in a way where you inflict a lot of self-judgment or anything like that. That's not what we want.
Yeah, and if I forgot to mention that you are the founder, did I mention that? Because I know I
We might have just jumped right in, but
yeah, I know. So I want to make sure everyone knows that she's the founder of Kindling Studios, and by trade, she's a product manager. So, and with the desire, right, this dream of, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't share that. You
no,
know,
I mean, I really do want to make this something that is far reaching and something that I could dedicate, myself to full time. Obviously, the primary goal of this is to be a movement and to bring this about in the community. There is, some type of focus that has to be done from a business perspective if that's something that I want to be able to dedicate myself full time to. So right now, we're kind of in that transition where I'm really locked in. I'm really putting as much out as I can. I'm really hoping to grow. So maybe that's another metaphor for kindling is I'm kindling this business and this project to kind of grow and get out into the world. So I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of speak on it here to other people that are in Louisville, but also people that can participate in the other avenues that we have available globally.
yeah, and you mentioned judgment. I know if I like return to my childhood art classes,
Mm-hmm.
I can recall a lot of self judgment, criticism. Of course, you can walk away with one art teacher grading your paper, right, or your piece, and then you never want to cultivate that again. And I think it is really important for us to I don't know, kind of as you said, like re-enter that childlike space and be able to look at our creativity through a new lens.
Yeah, I agree. And I was always someone who really valued creativity and reflection. As a kid, I really loved journaling. I liked making my own little magazines, crafting with my hands, things like that. But over the years, like a lot of us, kind of like what you said, you end up prioritizing productivity over being really present. So I moved into more structured roles in my career, in my life. Um, and while all of these experiences have given me so much, I also feel like I left behind this really essential part of myself. Professionally, I work in environments that are really fast paced, very strategic, very results driven, and I'm very good at that. But I keep feeling this tug towards something softer, something more expressive. And I realize talking to people about my experience that, that's not something unique to me. So many people are craving creativity and they don't want it to just be a side hobby. They want it to be a way of being and incorporated into every part of their life. So hopefully we can get everyone kind of reconnecting to that deeper part of themselves while also creating space around each other for us to do it together. So I kind of take my creative roots in my childhood and my community building instincts with the circle that I've cultivated of friends and relationships and things like that. And a lot of people about me would say, like, my very favorite thing to do is be a part of meaningful experiences, but also create them for others. So kind of combining all of these skills and traits that I have into something that I can leverage and bring to those around me and hopefully solve a community problem.
And you also mentioned women. Why do you,
Mhm.
I mean, you see it's predominantly women. I am curious, have you had men participate?
Not yet. And it's definitely not closed by any means. Um, I don't know exactly why this concept resonates more with women. But it seems like that is the group that in general responds to my conversations, like sees the events, either online or hanging up a poster at a coffee shop or whatever, and they book it and reach out and come and are more willing to um, kind of be a little bit uncomfortable in a space and see the potential in this opportunity. So, I've talked to my husband about, would you ever want to do this? Would there be something, a way that we can modify it that would be more intrinsically motivating to men? Um, and I think his main thing, which he's just one person, obviously, but his main thing is, he doesn't find comfort in the opportunity to like go out and meet new people. He found that really uncomfortable. And he was like, I would much rather like, you know, do one of the journaling kits that we offer at home by myself, locked up and no one knows about it. Like, so, and that's something that is kind of sad a little bit, and I don't know if that's again a common theme across, male mentalities. And it definitely could not be gender specific, but it's something that I do find really sad is the idea of like, oh yeah, I would do that, but I'm scared to do it around people, or I'm scared to be judged, or just like you were saying, I'm scared of people grading my output and things like that. So a lot to come, a lot of growth to happen in this type of community about making people feel comfortable.
Mhm. I have recently over the last couple of years, well, and I'm 47. I don't know where you are in life. But like I'm leaving uh, my ability to create life, right? And there is, there when we're younger, um, there is, I mean, whether or not we actually procreate with offspring, right? Women can turn seed into a child and another soul. And I think there is that deep need for women to create, like
Mhm.
throughout a lifetime, even after you can no longer actually have children, right? There is that need to, whether it's creating a home or creating a career or creating art, some sort of artistic medium. I mean, whatever that creativity looks like, I do think for women, it is almost like innate. Whereas for men, on this more like instinctual level to provide and protect, it's just not that they don't, right?
Yeah.
They do want to create too. I just find like with the men in my life, it looks different.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. And I think also something that came up when you were talking about that is, we live in a world that's constantly asking us to consume. We're scrolling, we're performing, we're reacting to things. And it's just so easy to become overstimulated and disconnected from our own inner voice. And so these types of things like journaling, sketching, connecting to kind of our seasonal rituals, and that's another thing that women are more seasonal beings. Those types of things can really offer a counterbalance to those types of ways that the world is tending, really helping us slow down, return to ourselves. And again, these practices are not about being artistic or productive or anything like that. They're just about noticing how you feel, noticing what's changing in nature around you, noticing what's asking for your attention right now, allowing us to create this space for reflection and intention and all the things that tend to get pushed aside in this fast-paced life. And one thing that we're trying to do is anchor our events around the rhythm of the seasons. So inviting people to be more grounded and have this kind of cyclical way of living that is also attached and aligned to the cyclical way that the world is living outside of us. So, wintering, blooming, shedding, there's wisdom in all of these types of seasons. And we try to honor that in everything that we're doing here. So, really kind of not blocking out the noise of the world, but more experiencing it in a way that is less overwhelming and more gentle to kind of resist that overstimulation and move more into intentionality.
Yeah, and I know with journaling or artistic um, expression, oftentimes you are tapping into that more intuitive side of the brain, which can allow for some clarity,
Yes,
right? Just as you said, presence, okay, and maybe that insight of like, what do I do next comes to you.
exactly.
And I love how you said, people are coming together and the conversations that arise at some of your events compared to sitting around, I don't know, even a restaurant and everybody's scrolling on their phones and the conversations are just about the latest thing they've seen on social media or the latest TV series one is watching. And I'm not knocking TV watching. We could sit down with a good series, but if that's all the communication, if it's all surrounded around these things, right? Devices or programs instead of what's intuitively coming through, right? I think we miss out on a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree. In the Sketch and Souls that we have there every second Sunday of the month. It's one of our signature gatherings. But the heart of those is, again, coming together, creating without pressure. So when you walk in, there's already this really thoughtfully curated table. All the art supplies are out. There's really warm light, calming music. Depending on the time of day, there might be the sunset, there might be sunshine, rain, whatever's coming in, all the windows are at the forefront and everything is arranged to feel welcoming and unintimidating. And making sure that even though if you don't feel artistic, you're able to belong. And so we usually start with some type of grounding, some breath work or a gentle prompt, and then we shift into what we call the creative flow. So you're drawing, you're journaling, you're collaging, but it's not about the result. It's just about being present with your hands and your thoughts and the atmosphere around you. And there's just this softness to it. And conversations kind of rise and fall. People share what they want, but then sometimes it's quiet and it's just comforting to have people around you. And what really makes it special is the intention that all of these people have made. They have come and on a Sunday afternoon to this place, it's not inconvenient, but it takes some type of planning and effort. So there's intention for everybody to be in this curated, cozy, place where they can let their guard down and there's no need to perform for each other or produce something. You just show up and you feel what you feel and you make something. And that can feel really radical and really uncomfortable, but also really beautiful. And you don't have to worry about being efficient or polished or productive or anything like that.
And I find that when I attend events similar, I meet exactly the souls I need to meet. I mean,
Mhm.
without a doubt,
Yeah,
someone
exactly.
there, right? I mean, it's more than just like it's just kismet.
No,
Yes.
I agree. I agree. Like we kind of talked about the last one, this term like girlhood. We want to focus on these parts of ourselves that we abandon. And for women, that is girlhood and kind of this gentle healing and craving for slowness and but something that's wholesome and not with a side of irony or like, feeling uncomfortable, like, oh, I can't want that, so I have to joke about it. We center around girlhood not in a childish way, but in this reverent way of returning to that time when we made things just because we loved to. And our creativity wasn't about good or wasn't about getting attention, but it was just being curious and playful and expressing ourselves and holding space for this energy where you can dream a little bit. Um, and we make the events intentionally slow. There's no rush, there's no agenda, beyond being present and being creative. And that slowness can be a little bit unfamiliar when you first start. Um, but I find it also to be very deeply healing. And it invites people to kind of tune into their breath, understand their senses, hear that inner voice that we kind of talked about earlier, and embrace that warm, earthy, grounding, wholesomeness feeling. And there's just something that almost feels rebellious about creating this beauty just for the sake of it. We're just lighting some candles, we'll pass around some essential oil rollers, draw some cards, just collage with no purpose beyond just being happy and bringing joy to each other. And in this world that is so loud and about performing, it's just really quiet and real. And I love that.
I love that too. And it is, I think, the words that you use, soften. You mentioned another word, but I really like it's almost as if we've had to put on this armor to get through life in today's world. And um, taking on, you know, many of the roles that men might have traditionally taken on, right? With the feminist movement, beautiful. But with that, right, we've had to kind of, in a sense, harden so that we
Yeah.
can continue to produce. And we've lost that softer nature, trying to just be out there in the world. And I think that that's what I personally think that that's a huge piece of what the collective needs is for women to actually soften. And then as we can soften, maybe the masculine can rise into, with um, that more divine leadership.
Yeah. I knew kind of from the very beginning that Kindling was not just going to be like putting on workshops, like art workshops or things like that, really focusing on belonging and a space where you can show up exactly where you are. So, whatever kind of like you were talking about, whatever scale that is in your femininity or in your taking on different roles and stretching yourself, come and be tender and be curious and uncertain and get inspired. And people there will be really warm and welcome you because we're just as adults are very disconnected. We're busy, we're guarded, like you said. And it's really rare to find spaces where you can be creative and mindful and those genuine kismet connections are, um, where you're not coming just to draw or sketch or collage or do whatever type of art, but you're coming because you feel a part of this meaningful purpose. And maybe you're there and someone else that it's their first time is supposed to come because you're there and you guys are going to make a connection. And the creative practices are just the doorway, but the deeper magic is in these relationships that form. People who meet at a journaling night, end up attending again together. Someone returns and they bring their mom or they bring their friend. And there's this web woven that is slowly growing, but intentionally and building this community. And that is just as important as anything you're getting about creating art. We're not just crafting these pages, we're crafting these connections. And it's a really lovely way that it's coming together.
So you mentioned you have a journaling kit that one can do at home. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, so we have several different kits that you can get online, or you can get them at events like sold on site, like a vending situation. Um, Kindling started as in person gatherings, but the vision has always been bigger. And so to be outside of Louisville, you can't always be in person. So we want to make sure that it's accessible and expandable. So we have these Kindling kits, is what we call them. They're curated creative bundles that bring the experience of one of our events to your house. And they're designed to feel like a gift. You can get them to as a gift for your friend, a gift for your inner self, but it includes sensory tools, journaling prompts, art supplies, and we do them seasonally and they have some type of seasonal ritual associated with what season that we're in. So whether, you live in Louisville or you live across the country, you're able to light your own little creative fire. And we also have some dreams of these collaborative retreats where we have these really immersive days or weekends co-hosted with these wellness practitioners and movement teachers and other artists. And the idea is to blend these kindling creative soul work practices with other healing modalities to kind of create something that's really, really community rooted and nourishing on an even deeper level. And on the digital space, we also have a few digital rituals that are really short seasonal practices. You can just download them online because the thought behind those were like even 5 minutes, something that's accessible. 5 minutes of guided reflection or creative play can really shift your energy depending on how you're feeling that day. So, we want to make this a way of keeping kindling alive so you're not just doing it when you're at an event, but you can feel connected even when you're alone, even when you're going through something and no one's around. You know, all of these offerings that we talked about in person, the kits, retreats, anything, it's all rooted in the same intention. So we want people to return to themselves. We want them to be really in tune with their senses and understand and grow their own stories. Be gentle with yourself, be creative, care for yourself. So we try to think of as many options as we can to make it as accessible as possible.
And when I'm curious, is this, I know I guess it's your baby, right?
Yeah.
Does your husband help with this? Is he like a behind the scenes? Are you?
He helps he's very supportive
Mm.
and he helps me, you know, as kind of a tester as much as he can be, as someone who isn't as interested in it. But so, when we launched our website, he was clicking around and trying to find things that were breaking or was like, this really doesn't make sense. I wouldn't know this was an event. Like you made it a product and that's confusing, things like that. He's in IT, he's an IT manager. And so, I was just texting him like, our printer toner needs to be switched out. He'll take care of these things where I can kind of focus on the more creative aspect and the more business aspect, and he will support me in any way that I can afterwards. For the yoga retreat, I'm taking his truck because I don't know exactly where in the forest this is going to be. So, things like that where he is supporting in every way that he can. But he doesn't necessarily, um, like come to the events or create things like that. But he is more of a kind of just a very complimentary support and having someone like the investment is my own, so which is when you're married it's our own. So
Right, right.
anything like that capital that's going into it or things like that, he has never questioned or said like, do you think this is a good idea, do you think blah 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 blah. He's just been supportive and said that he thinks I can do it. And anytime I have a win, he's celebrating with me and things like that. So it's definitely something where you can do it on your own, but it's much more rewarding and fun when you have all your cheerleaders around you getting excited every time that you get a win.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know that I really was, just genuinely curious because not everyone has that support, and I do think it's
Yeah.
important to have that support. It does make it, I mean, doesn't make it less easy, but kind of less easy.
No, it does. And I mean, you until someone does this, they don't know how many little tiny things there are to do.
Hmm.
Like, any help is nice. Can you take the little metal thing off of all 150 of these paint tubes? Can you like anything that I don't have to do that's going to take me like 30 minutes, but it's mindless work? Can you fold up all the prompts for the draw prompt jar? Can you like just things that you can do while you're watching TV, but it's just so much easier to have somebody that's like, yep, I'll do that. Like, yeah, no problem. So, I mean, again, it's not impossible to do it, but it is a lot harder.
Yeah. And that, I mean, this last 2 years, I've just really uh delved into trying to understand more of the divine masculine and feminine. And one of the things that I've read is that they want to be helpful. And so if they know how they can help you,
Yeah.
almost always they want to do it. And with the feminism, I can do it. Women, but it is just nice. And like I've had like just I think my upbringing led me to like not take any help. And now I'm sort of shifting, like I need your help. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And when we know as women, like this is really where I need you, will you? And then giving that freedom to make the decision, yes or no, is awesome. And the beauty and the teamwork of the two energetics. I don't care what sex you are, just the two energies.
Yeah,
There tends to be a masculine energetic in a relationship, or probably, and I don't know about a business relationship, and then or just a, and then a more feminine energetic, and that feminine is softer, and the one is more productive, right? But when they're vying for the same position, it becomes a little bit more difficult to make something work. I don't care
yeah,
whether it's a relationship or a business endeavor. When two people are vying for the same position, it just becomes more challenging. So I love that support is there. So the second Sundays, so one of your signature event is the Sketch and Soul, which is the one that was like caught my eye. But
yeah.
um, I know you're gonna do an event, which I do kind of want to hear about, even though this conversation may not be out there before this event. But I think it's I'd love to hear like this is a weekend long event.
Yeah, so the Kentucky Yoga Festival is a big yoga festival that takes place in the Daniel Boone National Forest. And where we host the Sketch and Souls is at Collective Wellness Spa. And they have a big vendor. It's not, I guess it's not really in the vending area, but basically they have all of the people that rent their space have a spot and you can come and do your practice. So there'll be Reiki, there'll be sound baths, there'll be craniosacral massage, all kinds of different things. And we were invited to come and we'll have our booth and sell our kits, but we'll also be doing a 1 hour kind of speed version of the Sketch and Soul workshop, where it's a little bit different because of the amenities that we have. So instead of painting, we'll use like watercolor markers and things like that. Just things that don't require as much cleanup and setup since we're out in the middle of the forest. So it'll be really cool. I'm very excited to be around so many people that are just like-minded and walking around and exploring the space. This is my first time. I know this is something that happens every year and is really popular. So I'm excited to go. I know that afterwards they said there would be like a late night black light yoga session, which I think will be really fun. I don't think I'll get to explore much, but I am going to do that.
Now, are they setting it up where I know that, yeah, this is an annual event. Are they setting that up where people can come and go, or is it like specific session times? Do you know?
So you come and go, but you sign up. So I know some
Okay.
of the people, I'm only having one workshop. So people will come by the, area and I'll say, hey, while you're here, if you're interested, you can sign up for our workshop, come back at this time, whatever. Some people that do one-on-one things, they'll have like their sign up list and you sign up for a time that you want to come back. And then some of the events are scheduled and they're on the schedule from the beginning. And those are more of the events led by the yoga festival. So it kind of varies for what you're doing. But for me, I'm going to have just the one event and let people know when it is and they can come stop by.
So you have, okay, and then you have on, all right, every second Sunday, right? So the next one is
Yes.
June 8th.
Yeah.
That's a Sketch and Soul.
Yes. And those are at the Collective Wellness Spa.
And then do you have some other events?
Yeah. Usually every month we'll try to do something that is a little bit longer and more in depth and like kind of different. So the community also inputs their ideas and have a backlog for about a year probably of ideas for that people have submitted. So one that was really popular is this practice called junk journaling. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but I can kind of talk about it a little bit.
No, yeah.
And it is a very interesting concept that kind of started in its nascency as a way to make art really accessible. And so you collect all of your little quote unquote junk throughout the day. So if you go to lunch with your friends, you get the receipt and it has the logo of the place you went. Or if you go to a show, you have the program or the ticket, or you go to the club, you have your wristband that they put on your wrist, all these little things that you would just throw away. So you're minimizing your trash output. you're getting free art supplies, and you're also kind of as a way of capturing what you did in your life. So, depending on how many things that you do, I don't know about you, I don't normally go to lunch with friends and then go to a show and then go to a club. So, you might not do it on the same day, but if you collect all of these types of things, throughout like a week or just whenever you get, I've seen people like they have little baggies, and whenever it gets to be enough, they'll do a spread, they call it, where your journal's open and that whole page is a spread, and you kind of add things. So this is where it has, you know, social media is one of those like angel on one side, devil on the other situations. So social media kind of took it to, of course, a space where I don't subscribe, which is kind of consumerism, where you buy out Michaels and Joann's and everywhere and get every single type of, special paper and special stamps and all this stuff. So that's kind of where the opposite end of the spectrum is. And then on this end, you have just using your trash and just using whatever you have. And the workshop will be somewhere in the middle, where I'm encouraging you to bring your stuff that's recycled. I've been thrifting and like gathering things that I think are fun. And I'll have a bunch of supplies that you can add to, and then you can add paint, you can add stickers, paper. I have like patches that I've been collecting that I'm like never going to do anything with. So all these supplies, and you can take and make these fun spreads. And so it's a little bit of kind of a happy medium of where it is come from social media and kind of where it started. But I really align with the recycling aspect, the free art supplies aspect, because again, we really want this to be accessible to everyone. And also just the creativity of putting things on a page that aren't supposed to be there. Like find something out in the middle of the yard and put it on there. Find like textures. I love to feel the page, and it doesn't feel like a piece of paper anymore. It just feels fun. Um, one time we did ingredients like condiments and things like that. Just it's just fun. So we'll do something like that. There'll be another event in the fall that'll be at the Waterfront Botanical Gardens. So each month we kind of try to have something that is, again, it's usually longer, like 3 hours or so. It's at a fun new venue. So the junk journaling will be at Fonte's Coffee. To kind of get out, get in new spaces, get to other people that we can connect with, um, and also see these spaces around Louisville that are really cool and have people that support this kind of work.
I love Fonte's coffee. That's one of our favorites.
Really, me too.
Uh, it's and people, you know, forget to play. Or,
Yeah,
the idea of playing is, I don't know. I hate to say this. I drive Lyft and Uber throughout the week and on the weekends. That idea of play is going to the bar and getting drunk, right? I mean, it's not always that, but in this town, there's a lot of drinking because we have distilleries here. And so it's just nice to know that there are things out there. I mean, I'm sober of over 2.5 years. And it's just, I mean, I think it's just a great offering for the community. I just think it's amazing. I love it because I think people are more than ever seeking something deeper.
yeah, I agree. And I've always seen Kindling as more than a business, and I hope it becomes a movement, like in my wildest dreams, of, a permission slip to kind of slow down, to create without this pressure, to reconnect with yourself, and hopefully become a touchstone for people. And that it's something that they do throughout their year, where they get the seasonal journaling prompts and they come to the community sketch nights and they go to those retreats in nature and know that there's always this place available for them. And, I imagine there's going to be kindling chapters in other cities and local facilitators that kind of bring their own magic to the framework. And we travel with the pop-ups and meet people in their own communities that, hopefully this weekend there'll be people from all over Kentucky, and I'm sure out of Kentucky, and making these small, beautiful connections. So I really also would love to see kindling in schools, in healing centers, anywhere where art and wellness and education kind of intersect. I think that's where, we all want humans to be more open and be more creative and more intentional. And I think that's a space where kindling would belong, is at these intersections. making creative healing part of every day, not something I'm in a crisis and now I don't know what to do. Your inner spark is always there and it just needs a little bit of tending to. And I hope that that is the message that people are receiving that I'm trying to put out.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I just am in love with your vision. I just think it sounds beautiful and just needed. Just needed. I'm like, it's just needed. And
Yeah,
it's definitely like my creative work right now is like I did write a book. I self-published in a couple years ago. And I do this podcast because it's part of my like I love being able to bring this part of and individuals like you to our community. And then I mean, sometimes I have people I've like in 706 cities and 48 countries. It's really cool to just
that is
learn
really cool.
a little bit more about how they can get more in touch with themselves. And uh, um, it's interesting. My son and his fiance, a couple of their date nights have included some of those YouTube like canvas paintings, and they each pick one and they do that for the evening. And they're tapping into that creative nature. I mean, we all have it. You are absolutely right. And I just think sometimes it's just like snuffed out of us, right? Like a candle snuffer. I mean, this image of this like one piece I created in seventh grade, it was a vase. And I just remember being graded on it. And that's just ego. It's not even about ego, I know, but like it can
Yeah,
just light snuff your creativity right out when we're graded in such a way.
yeah,
You won't want to do it, and I think I just love
100%.
this. Like yeah, it's such a bigger vision than just, like you said, doing art.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Mhm.
I love it.
So where can people, I know you've mentioned several events, and there's an event in June 8th, and then you have one at Fonte's Coffee. Was that June 14th?
Yes, it's June 14th.
And then you have something at the Botanical Gardens. Of course, if anybody catches this, I don't know, I might put this out tomorrow, but it might be still a little bit late for Kentucky Yoga Festival, but um you might be there next year.
Exactly. And I'm sure we'll be at a lot of there's so many, anything with the collective wellness, they put it out to all of their team. So there's a lot of events that people will all be having where we'll have booths and things set up and do workshops. So I'm sure I'll see you around town if you're listening in Louisville for sure.
Yeah, and how can they find you? I know your Instagram is Kindling Studios, but there's a dot in the middle there.
Yeah, kindling.studios on Instagram and then kindlingartstudios.com.
Okay.
So those are our two primary ways. And then if you go on the website, you can subscribe to a weekly newsletter that we send out to have just a little bit of inspo, reminders of what we have going on, things like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm so grateful to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you for having me. This is a really great, I love this podcast. I listened to a couple of your episodes today to practice. So I love what you're doing too. It's awesome.
Yeah, and you're doing exact right. You're living your unapologetic life. So, and that's what I love. And I don't know. I think it's again, that's, just really being true to ourselves is so important, and tapping into and the work that the offerings are a great that you are sharing with the community are a great way to do just that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing that because it gives me a lot of fuels my own spark to keep going. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I love that. Well, thank you so much. All the links will be in the show notes, so be sure to check that out, and find Maria on Instagram under kindling.studios. I don't know if she direct messages, but maybe she will. And
totally.
and if you're not here, right, be sure to check out one of her kindling kits.
Yep, they're all on the website and they ship in America. No international yet, but anywhere in America.
Okay, awesome. I'm so glad to have you with us. It was great to meet you. I haven't met you yet, but this
I
is
know. It's great to virtually meet you.
and I know I'll meet you eventually in person.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course.
Have a great day.
You too.
Okay.